Since its debut in 2013, the Adult Swim animated series Rick and Morty has established itself as one of the smartest, funniest, most outrageous shows on television. The dimension-hopping, alcoholic mad scientist Rick Sanchez and his nephew Morty keep fans constantly on their toes, with their insane, sometimes world-destroying interstellar adventures. The only complaint being that creators Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland just can't produce new episodes fast enough. If previous seasons are any indication, we're likely to be waiting a long time for the premiere of Season 4, which probably won't show up anytime before 2019. So while we wait, here are 10 things you may not have known about Rick and Morty. The comedic duo behind Rick and Morty met through Channel 101, a monthly non-profit short animated film festival which Harmon created. In between pitching television projects to the Fox network, Roiland would submit his work on a near-monthly basis. Speaking with Vulture, Harmon said, "We'd been doing shows for about a year when Justin began submitting sick and twisted stuff that the audience didn't really get, but we loved. So we kept bringing him back, and it's a good thing that they did." Roiland's unhinged work struck a chord with Harmon, and when Adult Swim approached Harmon about developing a show for them, he knew right away that he would want Roiland to be involved. Of course, much of Roiland's Channel 101 shorts completely ignored copyright law, such as House of Cosby's, which is pretty much just what it sounds like, and would have invited a tornado of lawsuits if adapted for television. But one of those shorts stood out enough that the pair decided it was ripe for adaptation anyway, despite being based on one of the most popular and beloved films of all time. The animated short that would eventually be developed into Rick and Morty was titled The Real Adventures of Doc and Marty, but Roiland had originally wanted to call it Back to the Future, the new official Universal Studios cartoon featuring the new Doc Brown and Marty McFly. That's right, any resemblance between the dimension-skipping duo and the main characters of the Back to the Future film series is completely intentional. Roiland has said that he created the short as a way to poke fun at the idea of getting cease and desist letters, which he certainly would have gotten a mountain of if Doc and Marty had ever seen the light of day. The crudely animated short is ever more over-the-top vulgar and crazy than the series had inspired, but it's still familiar despite its rough character design, mainly due to Roiland's vocal performances. He provides the voices for both Rick and Morty in the series, and even in the characters' very first incarnations, the characterizations were almost exactly the same as they are today.
I'm a doctor, Marty. Trust me, Marty. All right, Doc. Say no more.
When Roiland goes into the booth to voice his mad scientist creation, it's anything but a typical recording session. You could say he's a method actor. Since Rick is constantly drunk and every other sentence out of his mouth is broken up by a belch, Roiland figures there's no better way to capture the essence of the character than to actually get hammered on booze in the recording booth. Most line recordings are pretty simple in and out affairs, but Roiland's sessions for Rick are known to take far longer than most. Not only is this because he has to make sure that the character's lines contain the proper speech-to-burp ratio, but because slamming beer and liquor for several hours tends to make him wander off script, and he's also known to interrupt recording sessions to wax humorously philosophical about whatever happens to be on his mind. Producer Sidney Ryan noted that the booze adds a whole new aspect to Justin, which is apparently a critical one for bringing Rick Sanchez to amusingly drunken life. Harmon and Roiland take a notoriously long time perfecting each episode of each season, with a typical wait between seasons being about a year and a half. That's simply because they're perfectionists, obsessed with turning out the highest quality material possible, so most fans tend to cut them slack about the extended production schedule. But oddly enough, the pilot episode didn't take quite so long to come together. According to Harmon, its script was written in only 6 hours. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times, Harmon remembered that the duo had literally just sold the show to Adult Swim when they sat down on the floor of his empty, unfurnished office and went to work writing the pilot. After some time, Harmon was getting ready to call it a day when Roiland, who admits to being a terrible procrastinator, went against his nature and insisted that they stay and finish the job. The result was an amazingly tight, coherent script which firmly established the series' world and family dynamics, while laying on the gags as thick as any other subsequent episode. Virtually any animated series that develops any kind of following at all owes a debt of gratitude to The Simpsons, which single-handedly established the viability of primetime animated shows and has become a universally beloved institution, remaining on the air for nearly 30 years and counting. The couch gags, which almost always conclude the opening credits, are familiar to anyone who owns a television, and when the venerable series allowed guest animators to handle couch gag duties in 2015, Harmon and Roiland were happy to jump on board and bring a small dose of Rick and Morty insanity to Springfield. In the spot, which runs for about 2.5 minutes, the Simpsons scramble for the couch is interrupted by a flying saucer crashing into their living room, reducing them all to yellow goo. Of course, the saucer is piloted by none other than Morty, who then departs on a short interdimensional adventure in search of Simpsons clones while Rick stays behind in the family's home, helping himself to beer and snacks. Morty completes his mission, but the cloning process goes predictably awry. The spot was a rare example of cooperation between two competing networks, and Roiland said in an interview that the Simpsons writers gave them total creative control over it. In addition to the glacial pace of production, Roiland and Harmon have also taken flack in the past for having an all-male writer's room. This is why for Season 3 they decided to kill two birds with one stone. Familiarity between all of the writers could sometimes result in a logjam where everybody was overthinking everything, which could cause friction in the writer's room and threaten to slow production to a halt. But for the third season, the duo went for a split room, 3 men and 3 women, and as a result, those creative logjams have become much less frequent. In an interview with the Daily Beast, Harmon credits the gender-balanced writer's room with renewing the show's creative energy and doing away with the constant overthinking. Also, Season 3 storylines which focused on Rick's daughter Beth and her marriage to husband Jerry were said to benefit from the presence of female writers, as did the character of granddaughter Summer, whose characterization became a great deal more interesting. But, said Harmon, the female writing staff aren't there to simply clue the male writers into all the secrets of women. He and Roiland both feel that the mixed writing staff resulted in the show's best season overall, and they plan to continue using this model going forward. Composer Ryan Elder is responsible for all of the show's music. He met Roiland during the days of Channel 101 and even worked on the original Doc and Marty short. Elder composed the series' main theme, which he says was inspired heavily by classic sci-fi television series such as Doctor Who, Farscape, and Invader Zim. And he puts together all of Rick and Morty's musical cues, many of which he says are heavily influenced by Roiland's improvisation. These include Flu Hatin' rap from the Season 1 episode Rick Potion No. 9, the alien jazz rap heard at the wedding of Rick's friend Bird Person in the Season 2 finale, and the David Bowie-esque Goodbye Moon Man from Season 2's Morty Night Run, with a final vocal provided by Flight of the Conchords' Jermaine Clement. However, there is one exception. The songs featured in Season 2's Get Swifty were composed as Easter eggs in a tie-in flash game, with the writers only deciding to build an episode around them after they were already complete. The cheesy beats used for the tunes came from Adult Swim's library, and Roiland once again improvised all of the lyrics.
You gotta get swifty in here. It's time to get swifty.
Get swifty? What the hell is that?
It's our world's best effort, that's what.
Because Rick himself is the pinnacle of nihilism, one could be forgiven for thinking that Rick and Morty is a nihilistic show at its core. But to hear Harmon explain it, nothing could be further from the truth. In an interview posted on Adult Swim's website, Harmon concedes that in a wide view of the universe, like the view held by a near-omniscient being such as Rick, nothing really matters in the end. But paradoxically, he says, this knowledge is what gives life meaning. The planet is dying, the sun is exploding, the universe is cooling, nothing's gonna matter. The further back you pull, the more that truth will endure, he says. But when you zoom in on Earth, zoom into a family, zoom into a human brain, you see all these things that matter. We have this fleeting chance to participate in an illusion. Knowing the truth, which is that nothing matters, can actually save you. Once you get through that terrifying threshold of accepting that, then every place is the center of the universe, and every moment is the most important moment, and everything is the meaning of life. In the Season 3 premiere, The Rick Shank Redemption, an alien mind probe reveals a heartbreaking backstory for the mad scientist, in which his former wife was killed in a lab explosion. Later in the episode, Rick revealed the backstory to be a complete fabrication, but many fans have theorized that it may in fact be true, which would go a long way toward explaining Rick's nihilistic worldview. According to the show's creators, however, what you see is what you get. Not only was the backstory indeed fake, but they made a decision early on to never let the audience in on why Rick is the way he is. Speaking with the AV Club, Harmon said, "We're very careful about delving into Rick's backstory, because when we do, we don't want there to be any shocking surprises." He went on to say that the lack of a backstory was Roiland's decision from the beginning, and Roiland added that he would find it shark-jumping to get into what made Rick start drinking or why he spikes his hair. This means that the audience may never truly know what motivates Rick, but that doesn't mean the writers don't. In the same interview, Harmon dropped an unexpected tidbit that is sure to have fans pondering for years to come. He related that early on in writing the show's first season, one of the writers had an idea to come up with a secret, a huge dark secret that would forever inform the character of Rick Sanchez, and one that the writers would always keep in mind but never let the audience in on. The creators loved the idea, and everybody involved immediately agreed on what this secret should be. This device has informed every writer to work on Rick and Morty since, and Harmon and Roiland maintain to this day that it will never be divulged. But halfway through the first season, Harmon says that a Reddit user made a post in which they correctly guessed the secret. The writers may never tell us, but if you've got the time to sift through thousands of years old Reddit posts, you just may be able to uncover it yourself.